Welcome to the Shadow Moons of Power, a weekly roundup where we're going to look at the political circus without getting swallowed up by the anxiety as it pumps through your veins and your nervous system. The rest of the world is spending its time asking who's right, who's wrong, who should we be scared of this week. Here, we're going to ask a few different questions, right? What's really going on underneath the performance? And what does it show us about our own power, right? I'm Kate Sylvanus, and I'm your hostess. And tonight we're going to bring Carl Jung into the Westminster pub. Carl Jung talked about the shadow. That's one of my favourite topics. All the parts of ourselves we don't want to admit we have. The rage, the greed, the fear, the need to control. We shove them down and insist, that's not me. I'm not that person. But the psyche isn't daft. What we refuse to see in ourselves, we start seeing everywhere else. And this is called projection. All right. Now, once you understand projection, the news stops being quite so terrifying and becomes legible. You stop thinking, the world has gone mad. It probably has. But you start thinking, they've lost hold of their own shadow again. Today we're going to do 4 things. Set up some simple tools, tiny Jungian toolkit for watching the news without drowning in it, and walk through the British politics and ask, whose shadow is this? Yes, what a cesspit. And then we're also going to look at the big global headlines and see how world leaders are projecting like it's an Olympic sport. Okay, so I'm going to also give you some ways to spot projection in your own reactions. Not to blame yourself, but to reclaim your power. Because if you can see the pattern, you're less likely to be pushed around by it. Frank Herbert. The first step in avoiding the trap is knowing of its existence. Right, let's start with the toolkit, okay? A tiny little Jungian toolkit. And the 3 ideas to keep in your back pocket. Right. Shadow. Anything about yourself you'd rather not admit. Right? Fear, cruelty, desire for control, helplessness, all of that stuff. Right? Persona. The mask you show the world. I'm sensible, I'm strong, I'm the grown-up. I'm virtue signalling, all of that stuff. Projection. Taking the bits you've denied and slapping them onto someone else. Individuals do this a lot, so do governments. If a government says, we're all about freedom and responsibility, behaves like an overbearing parent, constant surveillance, constant scolding, then the shadow is in charge. Here's the empowering bit. Once you see the projection, you can choose not to swallow it. You stop thinking, I must be the problem, and start thinking, that's their unowned fear trying to land itself in my nervous system. Today's invitation is simple. You don't have to agree with any analysis. You just listen for that inner click that says, yes, that's the elephant in the room no one is mentioning. That click is your power. Okay. Right. Let's take this toolkit into Westminster. More den of hive and villainy, or something like that. I think that was out of Star Wars. I can quote all kinds of things. All right, let's walk through a typical week in British politics. Okay. I didn't enjoy the research of this. Okay, I really didn't. It was like, God, what a dick. Oh, what an asshole. Oh, please. This is just projections. But you start to notice a pattern, okay? So I had to work out how I wanted to do this segment. I wanted to talk about the news because it's a poison. It streaks and toxifies everything it touches. And I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't want to add more fear, right? But you notice a pattern to all of this, right? The public language is like it is calm, it is technically, it is all responsible stuff, right? Just think of the children. The children are our biggest concern. And you listen to it and you hear underneath it's like anxiety, control, the urge, constant urge to move the goalposts, to bring in something new that will sort it all out, we promise. You get bills with names like public order and safety. That in practice means we're a bit frightened of you organising. Yeah? You hear that bit, don't you? You get the talk of protecting democracy. And somehow it always comes away with extra ID checks, new restrictions, and fewer ways to hold them accountable. If you start watching this without a psychological lens, it's enraging, it's exhausting. With the Jungian lens, it becomes strangely transparent, all right? He was a smart cookie, yeah. And you just have to slide his POV into what you're looking at. The persona versus the behaviour. Persona. We trust the British people. We cherish free speech. We welcome scrutiny. Behaviour. Making it harder to protest. Smearing critics and extremists as extremists. So anybody who criticises the government is extreme. Or they're exceedingly naive. Rewriting rules again and again and again when they become inconvenient. Young would say, the more someone insists, I'm not angry, while their face is purple and the table is shaking, the more you should believe the table. Okay, so what's the shadow here? The fear of losing power is the main shadow. You see them hanging on with their fingertips. The distrust of the public. Ooh, they don't like us. They really don't. Shame about past decisions that didn't turn out well. Yeah, these feelings are taboo in politics. You're not allowed to say, I'm scared of you and I don't trust you. So they get buried. And once buried, they don't vanish. They leak out in policy. You start to hear, we have to protect the public from dangerous influences. Yeah, no kidding. We can't allow disruptive elements to undermine order. We must restrict X to defend Y. Notice how security means containment, and how often the thing being contained is me and you, right? Okay, so how to listen without fear. Next time you hear one of these phrases, instead of panicking, try replacing security with control in a sentence and see if it makes more sense. And ask, if they said the quiet part out loud, what would it be? Okay, so here's an example. We're introducing these measures to protect democracy. Often decodes to, we don't trust how you're going to use your vote, voice, or feet, so we're going to pad the system. You don't have to agree with my interpretation. That's not the point. What matters is you start hearing beneath the words. Because the moment you start hearing beneath the words, you're no longer hypnotized by them. And once you're out of the trance, you can ask better questions. Is this actually necessary? Who benefits? And what part of their shadow are they refusing to own? That's the move from fear to power. All right. From our own shadow cabinet to the global stage, okay? Shadow global play shadow, wars, crises, and the reluctant aggressor. Oh, I don't want to do this, but your behavior forced me into that sort of shit. On the world stage this week, like most weeks, you'll hear the same chorus. No one wants escalation. We are doing everything that we can to avoid war, and we're purely acting in self-defense, right? Okay, I'm not going to get involved with the politics. Maybe it is self-defense. Maybe they don't want to escalate. But look at it. Bombs are dropping, sanctions are tightening, and leaders are poising in front of the flags, looking stern and regretful. It's happened over and over again. And again and again. And if you take it literally, it's terrifying. It sounds like war just falls from the sky like bad weather and nobody could really help it. That's how it sounds like. From a Jungian angle, you see something else. A dance between persona and shadow. Persona of the big, typical big power. We are peaceful. We value human rights. We reluctantly use force. Now, maybe they do. But it's a big persona, and it's been wheeled out over and over again. I don't know. All I can see is the shadow, the desire for control, the addiction to status and dominance, the fear of humiliation or loss of influence. Shadow's not evil, it's human, all right? But when it's denied, it becomes dangerous. You get leaders who genuinely believe that they're forced, compelled, or pushed into ever more violent choices because they can't admit, we wanted this, we chose this, but we also could have chosen differently. Okay? How about, like, if this person was annoying you, you just go in and snatch them away? Like you've tried before? Why is war inevitable? Inevitable, right. How to watch war coverage without drowning in it. All right. Now, I've seen that even the people being bombed choose this. Okay, maybe they did. Maybe they had pretty good reasons to. But was it inevitable that they had to drop the bombs? Was there no other choice? I don't know. But I think the word inevitable is a big red flag. Whenever you hear inevitable escalation, translate it into choices we don't want to take responsibility for. And you also notice how much airtime is given to the enemy's motives versus our own. Most coverage deeply analyzes their shadows, and barely glances at ours. Yeah, pay attention to your body, okay? If you feel your chest tightening and your breath shortening, that's often a sign that the fear narrative is landing. Where are you in your body right now? Okay, so when that happens, pause mentally and ask, who benefits from me being terrified right now? Now, if you're in a war zone and the bombs are landing on you, yes, right, you have my sympathy, whether you chose it or not, whether it's a good thing or bad thing, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about who benefits from me listening to this on the news, the radio, the social media platform. Who benefits? Is this information that helps me act? Can I act on it? Or just emotion that keeps me glued to the screen? Because the idea here is not ever to become numb. I want to feel compassion for it. I want to feel empathy and compassion for the people that are in the war zone. Because if I become numb, that's not good. The idea is to stay sober, emotionally present, but not drunk on someone else's pain and panic. The war is real, okay? Suffering is real. But the way it's narrated to you is rarely neutral. I'm not telling you anything you don't know here. By seeing the shadow, the unspoken motives, the unowned aggression, you become less susceptible to being carried along by the drama. You can still care deeply without being fodder. Okay, now we'll come to the heart of it. Your shadow, your power. Because this isn't about shaking our fists at them. Bad them. Now, that's another projection, all right? So the question is how we stay sane, clear, and powerful in a system that thrives on projection and fear. Right? This is not an exercise in blaming yourself, because we all do it. It's about reclaiming bits of power that you've handed away. So, 3 small reflections that you can play with this week. Who most enrages you politically? A party, a leader, a group. Pick one trait of theirs that really gets under your skin. Ask, where does that exist in me? Even a little tiny bit, even a sort of a 1% or a 0.001%. Okay, it's in you somewhere. Maybe you see them as manipulative. Where do you manipulate a little to feel safe? Where do you do that? Just noticing this doesn't excuse them. It's bringing you back to wholeness. Okay, so where do you feel totally powerless? Climate, war, money, elections. Got to ask little questions. Is it true I have no influence here? Your power might not be grand. It might be local, relative, relational, creative. This is what I have been up against. Is it true I have no influence? Well, what power do I have? Well, I'm doing this. I'm trying to put it in a way that's giving me a little power back. The system loves you to be frozen in learned helplessness. It's been programming you that from school. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. There has to be another way. Okay, number 3. What news stories do you avoid completely? Sometimes it's healthy, all right? Self-care, okay? Self-defense in a lot of ways. Sometimes it's a sign that something in the story matches your own unprocessed fear. Okay, I don't like Epstein files. I don't like grooming gangs. I don't like that. Okay, deep breath. I'm going to notice it with kindness. I'm not forcing myself to watch, okay? There's a shadow there for me too. I see it. It may be an unprocessed fear. I don't know. But analysis to action. Power doesn't mean to say I now control the world. Power means I see clearly enough to choose my response. I see clearly enough to choose my response. There you go. I'm in power again because I can see clearly enough to know that there is unprocessed shadow there. Yeah. But I can see it and I'm going to choose my response. And there's ways of doing this. Setting a limit on scrolling. Yeah, all of this. Using that time to create something. Art, conversation. A show. I write it down. Feed it, kind of broadcast it. I also refuse to join in when the conversation turns into whose fault it is, or that person is a dreadful politician, or that leader is an awful leader. It's like, okay, we don't know. We don't know them for sure. Okay? We don't know them personally. We've probably never met them. All we see is an image that is put up there. The elephant in the room. Our politics is not some alien entity. It's made of human beings with unexamined shadows, just like the rest of us. When you do even a little bit, just a tiny bit of your own shadow work, noticing your projections, feeling your fear without letting it drive, you become harder to manipulate. You become someone whose attention can't be cheaply captured and weaponized. That's quietly revolutionary. Okay, this has been the first episode of Shadow Moons of Power. If you like this, please like and subscribe. It'll be up on my radio station somewhere. Take a look at darkmoon.rocks and you'll find other weird stuff, basically. Thank you for bringing your mind, your intuition, and your refusal to be frightened into this space, okay? The news will keep trying to scare you. Let this time remind you that the more clearly you can see the patterns, the less that they own you. Keep your shadows where you can see them. Take care. Bye now.